To me, and I know I've read this before, and I love how the Bible is new every time you read it, or you're reminded of something every time you read it. And let me just make a preface statement this morning. I'm going to talk about some things, and I realize that the church and Christians are not Israel, but I still want to just maybe correlate some of this and look at the blessings of God on it. But I was looking back through Leviticus, or I was reading through Leviticus, and do you realize it was talking about the year of Jubilee, and just realizing what God would do for the children of Israel during that year and that time of Jubilee. Let me just break it down and maybe write so it's good and clear. He was telling them, and I'm just going to use current time. He said, if in 2020 you harvest, he said, and the year of Jubilee is in 2021, I'm going to give you enough harvest if you'll obey me in 2020. Now, he's talking to Israel, but I'm just using the dates to kind of get our mind about this, to see how good God is and how much he was going to bless Israel. And I believe how much he'll bless us if we'll just obey him and keep his commandments. But he said, and just again, these are just illustration dates this morning. 2020, year before the Jubilee, he says, I'm going to give you enough that you're going to have enough for 2021. Not only are you going to have enough for 2021, but you're going to have enough to get you to harvest of 2022. Do y'all realize how much that is? Now stop and think about this for just a minute. We're talking about in days before modern day canning. And I realize that there were preservations and ways to preserve food years ago. But you think about what God was going to do just to keep the children of Israel's food supply, because he said he would do it. And I just thought it was interesting this morning as I was reading, and we're going to get down in here into Leviticus chapter 26 and just kind of some referential statements there. But I just thought it was awesome that God said, you know what? I'm going to give you a bonus in 2020 that's going to last you not for just 2020, but for 2021 and until you can harvest in 2022. And again, I'm just using those dates for illustrations. But that is the power and awesomeness of God, that if we'll obey him, look at what he'll do. And if the children of Israel would have obeyed him, look at what they would have had. In chapter 26 of Leviticus, in verse 1, he says, you shall make no idols nor graven image, neither shall you rear up a standing image, neither shall you set up any image of stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. He says, look, there's nobody else on this planet. I'm it. Not going to build anything, not going to set anything up. You're going to look to me for what I'm going to give you. Now watch this. If you shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary, I am the Lord. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then will I give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And your threshing shall reach into the vintage, and the vintage shall reach into the sowing time, and ye shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land safely. Now again, I realize he's talking about Israel. And I realize that's who he's talking to. But how many of us have seen the blessings of God because of the obedience to God? You wonder where we're at today in society. You wonder where we're at in America and even in our churches and in our homes. And I wonder if it's because we've raised some idols up. I wonder if it's because we've not looked to God and trusted him. And we're trusting, I heard someone once say, I believe it was an African man looking at the Americans and saying, you Americans don't have faith in God. You got credit cards in your wallet. And he was convicting just on the statement. Again, it was just a passing statement that someone said in the message. And I thought how true that is. That if God doesn't show up, if God doesn't do it in our time, let me just whip out the piece of plastic and we'll take care of it. And God's saying, no. Yes, he's talking to Israel here, but I believe that he's like, wait a minute. I want to see if you'll trust me. Do we trust him this morning? And the threshing shall reach, in verse number 6, and I will give peace in the land, and ye shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid, and I will rid evil beasts out of your land, neither shall the sword go through your land. He's telling them, he's like, look, I'm going to give you some peace. I'm going to give you some quiet. If you'll just obey me, if you'll just stick with me and trust me as the Lord your God, look, the wild animals, I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to move them from place to place, and I'm going to get them out of your land. I'm going to, And just think, if we would trust God more, how much would God take care of us? How much has God taken care of us because we've obeyed Him? How much of those, may I say it this way, I'm going to call the cars the evil beast, but how much has God moved some of those out of the way as much as we missionaries travel? And even other folks, as much as we travel, how much has God moved them out of the way? I said, no, I'm going to take care of this. Hey, wait a minute. No, this guy's going to get attention. He's going to get a flat tire. He's going to get this or he's going to get that. Or I'm going to cause you to have the flat tire because there's something down there I don't need you to get into. We get upset about some of those things. But it's just God saying, I'm keeping you safe. Are we honoring Him this morning? And He says this, and you shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall by the sword. And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. For I will have respect unto you, and make you fruitful, and multiply you, and establish you my covenant with you. And it's just God talking here to Israel. And again, I'm not equating us with Israel by any means. But I believe these are the blessings of God, not only for Israel, but when somebody will just simply obey Him. Put Him first in their life. Do what He's asked us to do as Christians. And you say, well, why? You're talking about this? Yes, because I believe in the whole counsel of God. And I believe that God, He'll honor His word. And if we'll just obey Him, I'm not saying, I believe He'll bless us. I believe He'll give us these things. I believe He'll move those things out and take care of us. And I wonder about this and some of our enemies, and I know we maybe don't have enemies like what they did back then where we go out and take care of business like they did. But I know that we've got people that oppose us. And I wonder if we would just honor God and do what we're supposed to do, and I've seen it happen. And God just says, okay, I'm moving them. I'm moving them. I'm taking care of them. They get a job promotion. They find a better job. And God just moves them out of the way for us. He says, because I'm going to have respect to you. How many times have you gone into the store? Have you gone into a place of business? Have you gone somewhere and you told them who you was with, or you told them who you were, and they found out you was a Christian, and they found out just something about you, and they said, hey, I like this. And you have favor with them. You have favor with that business. And you say, why is that? Because I believe we honored God, obeyed Him, and did what He told us to do. It was just, again, this morning as I was looking through some of this, I thought, man, how good God was to take care of Israel. And how good He is to take care of us, and how blessed we are in what He's done for us. And I know I've seen some of these things in my life where God's taken care of these things. But just this morning, I just want you to stop and think about on this Friday morning.